People always remember the heroic glow of Optimus Prime, but almost no one talks about the night the truck refused to start. Not because of a mechanical failure, but because the crew swore they heard something inside the cab. Breathing. Under those polished chrome flames was a machine so heavy, so temperamental, that every filming day felt like a negotiation with a creature that didn't want to be controlled. A truck that could stall an entire multi-million-dollar production with one stubborn silence. And the deeper you dig into its behind-the-scenes history, the darker the truth becomes. The illusions, the clones, the failures, the accidents they covered up, and the one secret that still divides fans today. If you love the legends Hollywood tries to hide, stay with me. Let's pull apart the 20 strange threads Optimus left behind. Number 20. Why this specific Peterbilt became the only possible Optimus. The story begins with a detail so subtle that most fans never question it. Why this exact Peterbilt 379 was chosen when dozens of nearly identical rigs were available across the country. On paper, it wasn't the strongest, the newest, or even the cleanest machine on the shortlist. But the production team discovered something stranger. This truck had lived a brutally hard life on the road, leaving its frame slightly twisted and its stance just imperfect enough to look heroic on camera. Under certain lighting, its silhouette leaned forward like it was charging into battle. That aggressive posture wasn't engineered, it was the scar of decades. Hollywood didn't create Optimus's attitude. A lifetime of hauling impossible loads did. And once the crew saw that, there was no going back. They weren't choosing a truck. They were adopting a survivor, a machine that already carried the weight of a story long before the cameras ever rolled. And that single imperfection became the foundation for everything Optimus Prime later represented. Number 19, the original paint code that nearly never reached the screen. The paint job fans worship today almost didn't exist. Early screen tests used a completely different color scheme. Colder blues, muted reds, something closer to a fleet truck than a cinematic leader. It photographed well, but it didn't feel alive. Then came the discovery, a forgotten paint code from a custom shop in the Midwest, known for finishes that reacted violently to sunlight. Under harsh light, the colors flared. Under shade, they dulled to steel. It gave the illusion that the truck was breathing, shifting moods like a character rather than a prop. But using it came with a curse. The paint was notoriously unstable, requiring constant retouching, sometimes multiple times a day. The studio hated that. The director loved it. And that tension nearly killed the design before filming even began. What survived wasn't just a color scheme. It was a visual heartbeat, one argument away from disappearing forever. Number 18, the chrome illusion. Hollywood used to hide a major flaw. Hollywood loves perfection. But perfection is expensive, especially when it comes to chrome. The chrome on Optimus wasn't just polished metal. It was an illusion engineered to hide a flaw no one wants to talk about. The truck's front end didn't reflect light evenly. Years of highway wear had left microscopic pits across the surface, creating a dull, uneven sheen that cameras hated. So the crew turned to a trick normally reserved for high-end commercials. They layered a specialized reflective coating over the chrome, a material so fragile that even wiping it too hard could destroy it. Under controlled lighting, it created a flawless mirror. Under natural light, it looked alive, rippling with movement. But the price was brutal. Every day before dawn, a small team spent hours patching, reapplying, and repairing the illusion. They weren't polishing a truck. They were maintaining a lie. A beautiful one, but still a lie. And without it, Optimus would have looked far less heroic on screen. Number 17, the engine sound that turned into a manufactured myth. Fans think they know the sound of Optimus Prime, that deep, righteous growl, but almost none of it came from the real truck. The Peterbilt's actual engine note was disappointing. Muted, inconsistent, and far too soft for a cinematic leader. Worse, the engine had a strange harmonic rattle at mid-RPM, a vibration so unflattering that sound engineers labeled it the cough. It ruined takes, it ruined microphones, it even ruined one stunt rehearsal when the rattle triggered a false mechanical alarm. So the team scrapped the real audio entirely and stitched together a hybrid of diesel roars, industrial machinery, and, according to one engineer, the slowed-down recording of a military aircraft. What emerged was a myth, a voice that never existed in reality. And, ironically, the truck that inspired so many childhood dreams had a sound that producers actively buried. The Real Optimus didn't roar, he wheezed, and Hollywood covered it with the voice of a monster they had to build from scratch. Number 16, the stunt double truck that behaved like a wild animal. There was one truck on set the crew refused to stand behind. The stunt double that looked identical to Optimus, but behaved like something feral. Built for punishment, it carried a reinforced suspension and a mismatched steering system salvaged from an older rig. On paper, it should have handled impact better. In reality, it fought its drivers. The wheel had a delayed response, sometimes half a second, sometimes more. During high-speed rehearsals, that delay turned deadly. The truck lunged, drifted, and snapped back without warning, as if it had its own violent rhythm. One stunt driver compared it to holding on to an animal that hates its cage. Several near misses were quietly buried in production reports, including one moment where the truck veered hard enough to clip a lighting tower, slicing it open like tinfoil. The studio insisted it was safe. The drivers knew better. That double wasn't a tool. It was a threat, and every shot it appeared in carried the risk no one outside the crew ever saw. Number 15, the turning radius nightmare hidden behind hero shots. One of the biggest issues no one outside the set ever knew about was Optimus Prime's turning radius. A flaw so severe, the crew called it the circle of death. The long wheelbase made tight turns nearly impossible, especially in urban filming locations where inches mattered. During one downtown shoot, the truck needed to perform a simple left turn for a dramatic hero shot. It couldn't. Not without hopping a curb, crushing a prop mailbox, and nearly pinning a camera operator against a wall. The solution wasn't mechanical. It was deception. The team adjusted camera angles, masked the truck's trajectory, and even altered street layouts overnight, removing obstacles and repainting lane markings to fake a cleaner path. Viewers saw a confident, powerful leader. The crew saw a machine constantly threatening to overshoot its own scenes. That heroic elegance on screen? It was choreography built on fear. And every tight corner you see in the film exists only because a small army worked to hide the truth. Optimus Prime couldn't turn like a hero at all. Number 14, the Frankenstein clones that could never match the real Optimus. Most fans know Optimus Prime had multiple trucks on set, but few realize how radically different those clones truly were. They weren't identical siblings, they were Frankenstein variations built to survive specific tasks. One had a stripped interior to reduce weight for speed shots, another had reinforced axles for stunt impacts, a third, the most unsettling, had its entire rear frame modified to hold external camera rigs, making it impossible to drive naturally. The crew joked that it looked broken from birth. But the real complication wasn't the modifications, it was continuity. Each clone aged differently under stress. Paint faded unevenly, chrome wore out at different rates. Even the signature flame patterns drifted in color. This forced the art team into a constant battle, repainting, retouching, and reassembling details so each clone still read as a single character. Viewers saw one Optimus. The crew saw a jigsaw puzzle of machines stitched together daily. And behind that seamless illusion was a truth few productions would dare admit. Even heroes need stand-ins to survive Hollywood. Number 13, the insurance crisis that forced script and scene changes. There was one topic the studio refused to discuss publicly. Insurance. Insuring a vehicle like Optimus was a nightmare. The Peterbilt wasn't just heavy, it was irreplaceable. Each modification, from the chrome to the flame patterns to the custom mounts, pushed its insured value higher until one version of the truck became more expensive to cover per day than some lead actors. But the real problem wasn't cost, it was risk. Stunt drivers reported unpredictable handling, fragile chrome coatings, and mechanical quirks that could halt filming instantly. One minor collision could shut down production for days while specialists repaired cosmetic details. Insurers began demanding restrictions. No tight turns, no high-speed maneuvers without escorts, no night shoots on uneven terrain. These rules crippled the shot list. So the studio quietly rewrote scenes, adjusted chase sequences, and even relocated entire shoots to avoid violating policy. To audiences, Optimus looked fearless. Behind the scenes, the crew tiptoed around a contract so fragile that breaking it could bankrupt a filming day. It wasn't just a truck, it was a liability disguised as a legend. Number 12, the morning thaw ritual required just to film the truck. There's a strange rumor crew members still whisper about. Why filming days with Optimus always started hours later than scheduled. Officially, the reason was lighting adjustments. Unofficially, everyone knew the truth. The truck needed time to wake up. The custom chrome coating reacted violently to temperature shifts. If the truck rolled out of the warehouse too early, condensation formed across the metal, leaving streaks and blotches that made the hero vehicle look sick on camera. Makeup couldn't fix it, polishing couldn't fix it. Only waiting could. So every morning, the crew gathered around a truck they couldn't touch, watching as the chrome slowly equalized with the air. Makeup teams hovered, stunt teams idled, and production managers cursed at the burning budget. They called it the thaw, a ritual no one liked, but everyone obeyed. To the audience, Optimus arrives blazing into frame. In reality, he was a diva with a fragile skin, needing his own private sunrise before he could face the world.
Number 11. The fuel consumption problem that shocked veteran truckers.
Truckers laugh when fans claim Optimus Prime must have been efficient. The real Peterbilt devoured fuel at a rate that shocked even veterans. During chase sequences, the modified engine and constant idling burned through diesel so quickly that production had to station fuel trucks at multiple filming points just to keep Optimus alive. One crew log shows the truck consuming more fuel in a single afternoon than an entire convoy would use in a day. But the worst part wasn't the consumption, it was the inconsistency. Temperature, terrain, and even chrome coating fumes affected engine behavior. Some days the truck purred, other days it drank fuel like it was dying. This unpredictability forced the crew to shorten takes, rewrite blocking, and even replace certain wide shots with digital doubles because the real truck simply couldn't finish them without refueling mid-scene. Fans saw an unstoppable warrior. The crew saw a diva with a bottomless stomach. And every triumphant roar on screen masked the logistical chaos behind it. A hero running on fumes, both literally and financially.
Number 10. The camera trick that faked Optimus's legendary speed.
Speed was one of Optimus Prime's greatest on-screen illusions. The real truck was fast for its class, but nowhere near the blazing velocity audiences remember. To fix that, the filmmakers turned to an obscure camera trick, rarely used outside automotive commercials. Instead of increasing the truck's actual speed, they manipulated perception, shooting from extremely low angles, using longer lenses to compress distance, and subtly undercranking the camera to make every movement feel sharper, more urgent. The result was hypnotic, a machine that seemed to lunge forward with heroic momentum. But this trick came with danger. Undercranking magnifies every wobble, every vibration, every deviation from a straight path. And Optimus, with its temperamental stunt versions and oversized chrome, was a magnet for instability. Several shots had to be discarded because the illusion broke, revealing the truck's real, awkward pace. The audience saw power. The crew saw the constant fear that one imperfect frame could shatter the myth entirely.
Number 9. The daily chrome ritual that held the illusion together.
Behind Optimus Prime's gleaming chrome was a ritual that became infamous within the production. A daily battle known simply as the polishing hour. The chrome coating used on the hero truck was so temperamental that it reacted to fingerprints, dust, exhaust fumes, and even humidity from nearby crew breathing too close. By lunchtime, the truck often looked bruised, its reflective surfaces blotched with cloudy patterns that cameras mercilessly amplified. To fix this, a dedicated team spent every break restoring the mirror finish using a custom blend of polish that smelled so harsh, the crew nicknamed it Liquid Regret. Gloves dissolved, cloths shredded, and every time they finished, someone would inevitably brush against the truck, forcing the process to start again. The worst moments came during night shoots, when airborne moisture attacked the chrome faster than the team could repair it. Some scenes were abandoned entirely because the truck's reflections turned chaotic, scattering light in ways that ruined cinematography. Fans saw a spotless warrior. The crew saw a high-maintenance diva whose beauty required constant sacrifice.
Number 8. The wheelbase flaw that required a secret redesign.
The wheelbase of Optimus Prime was a problem no one expected. A flaw so fundamental, it forced a redesign mid-production. The truck's extended frame, perfect for giving Optimus his commanding stance, created a hidden nightmare: weight distribution. During early test drives, the rear end dragged on uneven terrain, while the front carried too much load during braking, causing the truck to dip forward violently.
One abrupt stop nearly sent a camera operator tumbling off a tracking vehicle. Engineers scrambled to fix it, adding subtle frame supports and adjusting suspension just enough to stabilize movement without changing Optimus's recognizable silhouette. But the fixes only worked on paper. Under stress, the truck still flexed, groaning like old steel under too much pressure. Lighting teams could hear it complain between takes. That sound, metal surrendering, became an omen on set. No one dared mention it to the studio. The redesign was locked, the schedule was fixed, and every scene filmed afterward carried the quiet knowledge that Optimus was one bad jolt away from catastrophic failure.
Number 7. The model year controversy fans still argue about. Among fans, few debates are as persistent or as bitter as the fight over Optimus Prime's true model year. Officially, production lists the hero truck as a 1994 Peterbilt 379. But the clones? That's where the mystery begins. Some were built from earlier chassis, others from later models retrofitted to match the hero version. Enthusiasts studying grille patterns, fender cuts, and even bolt placements discovered inconsistencies so glaring that message boards erupted for years. One clone had a cab shape only found on early 1990s builds. Another had an emissions panel introduced much later. The contradictions piled up until fans believed there were more versions of Optimus than the studio ever admitted. Inside the crew, the truth was simpler and more chaotic. They used whatever chassis they could source quickly, then modified them until nobody could tell on camera. Continuity was a constant gamble. Even today, screen-accurate collectors struggle to identify which details belonged to which truck. The myth of a single, perfect 1994 Optimus? That was never real. What fans worship is a composite, a patchwork legend stitched together from mismatched steel. Number 6. The lighting secret that made Optimus look alive at night. At night, Optimus Prime looked almost supernatural. Glowing edges, fiery reflections, and a presence that felt larger than the road itself. But none of that came from the truck. It came from a lighting secret the crew swore never to explain publicly. Instead of relying on traditional rig lighting, they embedded micro-angled reflectors across the truck's flame patterns and chrome lines. Under direct spotlights, these reflectors scattered beams in controlled streaks, giving the illusion that Optimus was radiating his own energy. The effect was breathtaking when it worked, but humidity, dust, and even the wrong bulb temperature could destroy the illusion instantly. One night shoot collapsed entirely because the reflectors refracted light into unpredictable spirals, making the truck look warped and ghost-like. Some crew loved the effect. The studio hated it. The reflectors were quietly replaced the next morning, but the legend remained. For a few nights, Optimus didn't just look alive. He looked possessed. Number 5. The mechanical failure that nearly broke the character. One of the most disruptive moments during production came from a mechanical failure no one saw coming. A failure that ended up rewriting an entire action sequence. During a rehearsal run, one of the stunt clones began emitting a low, metallic, grinding sound. At first, the crew brushed it off as brake dust or a loose shield. But seconds later, the front end collapsed several inches, as if the truck had suddenly exhaled its strength. The suspension tower had cracked internally, a silent fracture that had been growing for weeks. If the failure had happened at full speed, the truck could have jackknifed, potentially injuring half the stunt team. Production halted immediately. Engineers worked through the night, dismantling the clone, discovering more microfractures along the frame. The script had to be altered. A planned high-speed turn was removed, replaced with a safer close-up shot. To the audience, the moment looks intentional. To the crew, it was the day Optimus nearly folded in half. A reminder that even legends break, and sometimes they break quietly. Number 4. The hybrid CGI reality shots nobody could identify. Fans often argue about when CGI begins and reality ends in the Transformers films. But with Optimus Prime, the truth is stranger than the debate. Many of the most iconic wide shots, the ones where Optimus charges toward the camera or braces for impact, were real. But the moments audiences assume are authentic, many of those were digital illusions stitched onto footage of a truck that barely moved. The stunt team would drive at a crawl, while extra wind machines, undercranked footage, and composited dust clouds created the illusion of ferocious speed. In contrast, some scenes that appear fully CGI
actually used the stunt truck as a moving lighting reference, its chrome reflecting real-world elements filmmakers later mapped into digital geometry. The strangest hybrid shot came during a battle sequence, when only the wheels and lower frame were real. The entire upper body of Optimus was replaced with animation, layered so precisely that even crew members couldn't tell where steel ended and pixels began. To the audience, it all feels seamless. To those on set, it was a puzzle of half-truths, a character built from fragments of reality and digital ghosts.
Number 3. The missing clone that vanished without a trace. There was one truck the studio never officially acknowledged, a missing clone that crew members still whisper about. It was built early in production, intended for medium-speed stunts and risky close-quarter shots. But after only a few weeks on set, it vanished. No wrap-out photos, no transport logs, no auction records, nothing. Rumors spread fast. Some believed the truck sustained damage so severe that the studio destroyed it quietly to avoid insurance complications. Others claimed it had been bought by a private collector under a non-disclosure agreement. But the most unsettling theory came from a transportation coordinator who swore he saw the truck driven out at dawn by a team he didn't recognize. No studio badges, no paperwork, just a silent extraction. The disappearance created chaos in continuity planning. Scenes intended for that specific clone had to be restructured, rewritten, or abandoned. Officially, the truck never existed. Unofficially, it became a ghost story. The Optimus Prime that slipped through the cracks, leaving behind only questions and a lingering sense that someone, somewhere, wanted it gone. Number 2. The one irreplaceable structural flaw behind Optimus's iconic stance. There was one feature on the hero truck that made it impossible to replace. A detail so small, so deceptively ordinary, that even seasoned truck fans missed it for years. It wasn't the chrome. It wasn't the flames. It wasn't the engine or the iconic silhouette. It was a structural quirk buried deep in the cab. A micro-warped support beam that altered the way the truck leaned under acceleration. Cameras loved it. The subtle forward tilt made Optimus appear as if he were constantly pressing into battle, a posture no other clone could replicate, no matter how much the crew adjusted suspension settings. Engineers tried shimming, reinforcing, even artificially warping other frames, but none of them leaned with the same heroic aggression. That imperfect beam became the heartbeat of the character. It meant only one truck, and one truck alone could carry the presence audiences subconsciously recognized as Optimus Prime. When that hero truck wasn't available, scenes were rewritten, shots were reimagined, the production bent around its flaw, because without that tiny imperfection, the legend simply wouldn't stand. Number 1. The dismantling of the real hero truck, and the legend it left behind. For years, fans have asked the same question. What happened to the real Optimus Prime? The hero truck, the one that carried the weight of the story and the scars of production. The studio's official answer was vague. The truck was retired. But the truth buried behind closed doors was far heavier. After the final film wrapped, inspectors found structural fatigue far worse than expected. That micro-warp that gave Optimus his iconic stance had grown, spreading through the frame like a fracture in old bone. The hero truck was no longer safe to drive, or even transport. Restoration was considered, but specialists warned it would erase the very imperfections that defined the character. Preserving the truck meant destroying its soul. So, quietly, without press releases or auctions, the studio made a decision that still pains those who were there. The hero truck was dismantled, piece by piece, kept off public record to avoid backlash. Some parts were archived, others were lost. A few crew members kept small fragments as mementos. What survived wasn't the machine, it was the myth. Optimus Prime, the physical truck, died the moment filming ended. But the legend born from its flaws lives on in every frame it left behind. And before we close this story, if you've stayed with me through every strange turn, every hidden fracture, every illusion that held this legend together, consider joining the journey. There are countless machines in Hollywood with secrets just as bizarre, and we'll uncover them one by one. Because the final truth about Optimus Prime is heavier than metal. The moment the hero truck was dismantled, something unexpected happened within the crew. People who had worked around roaring engines their entire lives fell silent. A few stayed behind after wrap-out, touching the empty space where the cab once sat, as if paying respects to something that had crossed the line from machine to memory. The truck that carried a billion-dollar franchise, that endured impossible stunts, long nights, fragile chrome, and the weight of expectations, ended not with an explosion or a glorious send-off, but in quiet disassembly. No audience, no applause, just the sound of tools removing a legend from existence. But myths don't die with their bodies. Optimus Prime survived not because of polished chrome or flawless engineering, but because of his flaws. The warped beam, the unstable reflections, the imperfect stance. Those weaknesses became character. Character became icon. And icon became legacy. So the next time you see him blaze across the screen, remember this. The greatest heroes aren't perfect. They're held together by scars the world never sees. And somewhere, in a warehouse or a memory, parts of the real Optimus still wait. Not to return, but to be remembered.